Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy Does It, a podcast created specifically for the amazing members of the MJ team. Rob and I are back with you again, excited to bring you another great episode for your personal growth. Today, our topic is managing stress. And who doesn't have a little stress in their lives? This topic, which Rob already knows this, it comes live and in person from my own personal experiences over the past week.
You had a crazy week?
A little bit.
Okay.
Starting with last week.
You just came off the gala last weekend. You're not relaxed after all that?
No.
Never mind.
Yeah.
You had a crazy week then.
Yeah.
I'll take all those comments back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll get into that. And it was high stress, which then led me to text Rob this week and say, how about let's do managing stress for the next podcast? And he said, are you stressed? And I said, yes, I am. So here we are.
We're going to talk about it.
That's right. So before we begin my very own therapy session, what would you rather do you have for me, Rob?
I think I'm just going to leave you in here and let you just record and talk to yourself about your stressful week. Okay. Would you rather of the week is, would you rather find $100 in a toilet or $20 in your pocket?
Well, per most would you rathers, is there anything in said toilet? Because if it's just an empty old toilet, I'm reaching my hand in there and getting that $100 bill.
Out?
Yes.
Ew. That's nasty.
This is clean water. The toilet itself could be dirty.
Right. Would it make a difference if this is a public toilet versus your own toilet?
Oh, my own toilet, I'm definitely reaching in.
What if it's a public toilet?
Oof, I don't know about that.
That's where my mind went, was it's a public toilet.
Yeah, I might need to consult Rachel about what lives in public toilets.
She is on the other side of the wall here.
Yeah, I might need to.
I think you know what's inside them toilets, and I don't think that you'd be the type of person who would reach into a toilet like that.
I don't know, but it's $100.
Wow. I'm at a loss for words.
If it's just right there, I can wash my hands.
Yes, you can. I guess you can. Let me just say this. Let me say this. Time out. When I go to the gym in the morning sometimes, and I walk in there and I'm putting my stuff away, like it's a big wide open bathroom and the toilets are right over there. I can see them, but they're on the other side of the wall. Bad things go down in there sometimes. I ain't reaching my hand in no toilet ever. I don't care if it's a $500 bill. They ain't got none one of those, but I ain't doing it. I got $20 in my pocket. I ain't got to worry about some diseases up on that thing.
So even a clean toilet, you wouldn't reach in there?
Toilets clean in my book.
Okay. No. Well, I mean, that's fair.
You trust some other worker to go in there and clean that toilet to your degree?
No, I guess not. Mm-hmm. I still am not changing my answer, though.
You nasty. You is nasty.
I'm just telling you.
I got $20 in my pocket. I ain't got to worry about it.
Listen, I could get me some rubber gloves. I could wash my hands real good.
You can't put gloves on when you're doing that. That changes the whole story.
I know. See, this is...
I'll put the $100. I'll just air dry it, and then I carry it in with some tweezers.
Oh yeah, there is
hand it to somebody. I'm like, here you go.
There is the what do you do with it after?
Yeah.
Can you wash money?
Don't be asking ridiculous questions like that.
You can, right?
How you gonna wash money?
Yeah, if it gets stuck in your pocket and it goes in the washing machine.
I guess.
And
what if it disintegrates?
That'd be terrible because I just risked my life to get it out of the toilet.
Do you ever put a tissue in your pocket?
And wash it?
And wash it?
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
What happens?
It's all...
Oh, yeah.
But money's different.
You risking your life. You over here risking your life for $100. I know you be doing some crazy stuff for $100 now. Now I know. Now I stinking know.
Now some real crazy stuff.
I'm sticking with my $20 in my pocket.
Okay.
You nasty. Nasty.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You know what somebody was talking about using the would you rathers? First of all, I just think they make great conversation starters with just about anybody.
Yeah.
Like if you're even building rapport with a customer, maybe don't ask them about the toilet, but maybe. I mean, why not? We all got toilets. But even just like your family, your friends, You could take any Would You Rather from the Easy Does It podcast and use it.
Good conversation starter.
Yeah.
I can imagine rolling up to the front door of a customer's house and be like, $100 in a toilet or $20 in your pocket. Go. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Answer the question.
It'd be like, whoa.
Answer me now.
Yep. Okay. That was a good one. That was a good one.
I'm glad you liked it.
You learned something new about me today.
Yeah, you nasty. I can't believe you said that.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
You seem so low risk.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
You're still nasty.
Yep. I hope you can still do this podcast with me.
Don't touch me.
Now that you know this about me.
Don't touch me.
Okay, so we are going to talk about managing stress because stress is a part of life. There is not one single person that does not experience stress in one way, shape, or form at some point in their lives, or maybe consistently in their lives, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Right.
So really what I was hoping today to get out of this myself is to just have, when I was super stressed this past weekend, had a whole lot of stuff going down. And then this week, just trying to get some things accomplished here at work, there was just a lot going on. And so I started thinking to myself after the madness was dying down, did I have all the tools? Did I have all the skills that I need, or is there something else I could work on that would have helped me navigate that a little bit better? Which is why I asked you if we could do this topic, because it started making me think, do I have the right skills in my toolkit to be able to handle like these high stress situations?
Yeah, what kind of stuff came up for you?
Oh boy. Well, so it was quite the joyous weekend as well. So I don't want to downplay that in the least. So my sister had her baby last Friday, and little Haley joined our family. Oh. I know, she's so cute. And so babies come when babies want to come, right? We don't have really much control over that. So she was born on Friday. I knew that I was going to be kind of on standby here to help take care of my nephew because obviously Becca and my brother-in-law and the baby, they're all in the hospital. So I'm being auntie of the year. I'm taking my nephew to his basketball games and just making sure that he's taken care of while all this is going on. That was Friday night, and I had to make arrangements for my own kids to go somewhere else and the dog. And so I asked my mother-in-law if she would take them. She did. That was awesome. So gracious of her. And so we're all feeling good Friday. Okay. Me and Evan got a good night's sleep. We had been up. The phone call that the baby was coming happened at 3:00 in the morning, which will probably lead into some more of our conversation about sleep here later. So 3:00 in the morning, I've been up all day. We go to bed, we get a good night's sleep. Saturday, we wake up and he's got another basketball game. It's the day of the gala. And so the plan is my mom's going to come back down and take over for me, or either Becca and them will be home. My sister will be home from the hospital. So either way, I would leave, I would get ready for the gala. And that is not in the least how Saturday turned out. It was, my mom got sick. She couldn't come back down. My mother-in-law had a little bit of a medical emergency with my kids there. So I was just kind of overwhelmed with all of the things. You know, you go, we've talked about expectations before. Yep. And so I kind of had this picture in my mind as I would go, I would be, like I said, I would be auntie of the year. I would be like, you know, helping Evan kind of just have fun and that kind of thing so that my sister could navigate the new baby. And then I end up having to, you know, navigate going to get my own kids when I thought that they were taken care of. I ended up not going to the gala at all because there was just too many things, too many variables. And that wasn't that big of a deal, but it's just not what I expected.
Right.
And so having to kind of turn on a dime and then, is my mother-in-law okay? Are my kids okay? What's going on with the baby? I'm still caring for Evan. My mom is now sick and can't come down. So it was just a lot. It was a lot in a short amount of time. And then followed up this week, I had some things going on here that I just was having a hard time wrapping my head around. And so I don't feel like I'm normally super stressed, which, maybe that's just how I am, or maybe that's how my life is at this moment. I don't know.
Right.
It felt like over the past week, it was like, whoa.
That's a lot of heavy stuff all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, it kind of just made me think, what could I have done differently, if anything? Was there anything that could have, there were points at the weekend where I kind of felt paralyzed almost.
Right.
Like, do I go here and do this, or do I go there and do this? And so I'm trying to navigate all of these decisions, and I just feel like I'm not doing anything. I'm just stuck. And so I just started thinking maybe it's a good thing that I don't feel this type of stress as often, but it's going to happen. So
yep.
What can I do to be better equipped? I'm not saying that I'm not going to feel a certain type of way, that I ain't going to be sweating and my heart rate's not going to be, all of those things are going to happen. Those are, I think, natural reactions from your body, but it's like, what do I have to be able to lean back on when that does happen?
Did you find like you managed the stress okay? Or did you find every strategy that you've tried to use in the past, like it just all went out the window and you just went back to survival mode?
I did feel like that was one thing that I was, after looking back at the weekend, proud of, was just like navigating each thing at a time. I do feel like I felt better equipped to just be able to control what I could control in the moment. Mm-hmm. And so it was like we were pulling into my nephew's basketball game, and that's when my mother-in-law called me and told me about this kind of situation that she was having. And in that moment, I did feel like, oh my God, like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stay here with Evan and have his basketball game? Or am I supposed to go get my kids? Am I supposed to go check on her? What am I supposed to do? And I was kind of just, like I said, paralyzed by so many decisions. But then finally I was like, you know what? Let me just one thing at a time. So there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do from where I was to help her or help my own kids, because I was 45 minutes away from her house.
Right.
So in that moment, I recognized, let me just focus here on what I have in front of me. My kids are safe. My kids are fine. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, let me just take one thing at a time. By the time the day kind of went on, I just recognized the gala is not in the cards for today. So let's just call it. That's one less stressor on my plate, and let it go to try and get home and get ready and, that kind of thing. So plus I was also exhausted from the day before. So I don't know if I would have been great company anyway, but I did feel like I did a pretty good job of, I can control this right now. I can do this right now. I can do this right now. And just taking everything one manageable step at a time, instead of trying to kind of fix everybody's problems at the same time.
Right. Well, I think the strategy that you had, which I hate all that stuff happened to you in the first place. Like that's not ideal or fun. But I think that the strategy that you had with taking what you can affect and change and just break it down into little pieces and say, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Otherwise, the alternative to that is you end up stressing out with the 10 things that you have going on versus just focusing on, look, there are 10 things on the plate for today, but I can't do anything about the others. I can only do something about what's in front of me. So I'm going to be here at Evan's game.
Right.
And I'll figure out what's next after that. And it doesn't mean that you can't think ahead and kind of pre-plan where you're going to go after that, but then just being like, I can only do this right now. I found, when we were in, sorry, my voice is a little scratchy. When I was in the Marine Corps, it's funny when we were at boot camp, because we they didn't give us a clock. You didn't know what time of day it was. So it'd be dark outside and they'd wake you up very calmly and they would get you online. You had to get dressed and then they would take you to breakfast and then you would come back and you had your stuff to do that day. And then lunch would come sometime and then you would go back, do more work. And then you had dinner and then wrapping things up and you'd go to bed. But you never really knew what time of day it was. And how many times do you look at your phone to see what time it is and determine how much time do I have left? I have something coming up. And so we didn't have that. And so it was just kind of funny. All the guys, the best strategy I ever got while we were there is like, just make it to the next meal. That's all you got to worry about. If you just make it to lunch, you'll be fine. And you're like, all right, I'm looking forward to lunch. I can do anything from now until then. I can figure it out. If I'm in pain, they're beating me up, whatever, I'll be fine. And then after that, I just got to make it to dinner. I just got to make it to bed.
Yeah.
And so just breaking the day down into little bite-sized chunks makes the stress easier to manage because I can't do anything about anything that happens after lunch, but I do need to do something about what's right here in front of me right now. And that's all I need to focus on. And so I love breaking all of things in life down to little things, even so much so as one at a time. So when I was doing the fitness class stuff, I would tell everybody, I'm like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'd slide 75 burpees in to the workout. And then after you get done with that, you go on to this. And the amount of people that were like, oh, 75. Are you insane? It's going to take me 2 hours to do that. I'm like, guys, it's just 75. It's just, 7-ish sets of 10 with a couple extras in there. You could do 10, right? Yeah. Just do it 7 times plus 5 more, 7.5. And then people were like, okay, I guess I don't have a choice. I'm like, you paid for this. So here we are. But then it was like, just do 10 and then shake it out and do 10 again and shake it out. And then if 10's challenging for you, what do we do at 10? You break it down to 1 at a time. So I would just tell people, I'm like, guys, just one rep at a time.
Yeah.
And then things get exorbitantly easier because I don't have to think about anything, but I just got to get 1 rep in. I got to get 1 rep in. Wow. I'm not going to stress over 1 rep. I'll stress over 75, but not 1. So the amount of stuff that happened to you all on the weekend and you had plans and there were many moving pieces. I can only imagine just trying to focus on one thing at a time could be tough because I got all these balls in the air. But still you did it.
Yeah.
I'm here right now and I'll figure out what's next after that.
Yeah, it did. There's a couple things I want to ask you after that. It did help me to recognize, and there's this word, which I sent this to you earlier because I really feel like I'm down this path of this idea of agency. And I heard that in a podcast and started looking more into this idea of agency. And for those of you who had to look up the definition like me, it's a person's ability to initiate and control their actions, being in charge of one's own choices and behaviors, and having the power to influence your own life outcomes. So believing in my own agency, my own ability to control my actions and control the outcomes as much as I could. I guess I haven't really thought about that word a lot, but I think that when we navigate through things like that, and it's just like we made it, then it helps to bolster our agency to be able to say, like, I made it. I made it through. I did 1 step at a time, and that got me through to when I could get off of that stress high. And so I think that piece that we could probably do a whole entire podcast on agency, but I think that's one thing that I haven't thought about that, but that's one thing that I think helped me recognize is I have a little bit more agency around my stress management now than I think I've had before.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that I wanted to ask you, so let me back up 3 or 4 steps. So of course we've talked about this before, and I find this fascinating because the body is fascinating and our brains are fascinating. So stress is normal. We already talked about that. I think that that's one thing that's important for people to recognize is it is normal.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times people are afraid to say I'm stressed or I need help or whatever it is because it feels like weakness. It feels like you can't do what you're supposed to be doing, whatever. So I think that first and foremost is what people hopefully people need to hear is it's normal to be stressed and it's normal to have to ask for help, and it's normal. It is not a sign of weakness to be stressed.
Right.
Period. So I think recognizing that first, the way that your body responds to stress, the amygdala, it's only the size of an almond.
It's small.
That's crazy. So the amygdala is that's your caveman brain, right? That's your fight or flight controls. That's where your stress response lives, is in your amygdala. And so that's your body's doing what it's supposed to be doing. My body, when my heart rate was up and I was feeling a little bit sweaty, and I was like, those were all my body's reactions to me being stressed. And that is normal. And I think people need to hear that too. A stress response is normal. That is your body's way of protecting you.
Yep.
So my question for you is, because I thought about this military piece, because I think that one thing that I recognized in doing my research for this is that our amygdala, our stress response, now more than ever, I believe, is turned on. What they said on I listened to the Mel Robbins podcast. This is where a lot of what I found for today came from. What she said was our stress response is like humming in the background all the time. Like our amygdala is just sitting there like, eh. I'm sure we have something.
Y'all, we actually have, we should have said it at the beginning. We have a new mixing board for our podcast. We told you all some things were coming down the pipe. So we're official. We have new mics now, and we have this lovely new mixing board that has sound effects. So keep talking.
What does the amygdala do?
I'm sorry, guys. I had to do it. I was like, I got to find the right moment to do this.
Yeah, he was itching to touch one of those buttons.
I did it.
So your amygdala or your stress response is running in the background all the time, which is not good for our bodies. It's not good for us to, like, if I felt the same way I felt this weekend all the time, that would be no bueno for my physical and my mental health.
Right.
So when you were in the military, do you feel like that's what was happening? Like, do you feel like that stress response was turned on? I can see how that is the case. And then I guess my other question to that is, when you came out of the military, what does it... I've never been in a situation, I don't feel like, where it would have been turned on like that for so long or so often. What does it feel like to kind of get back to like a reset? You know, like you can't live the rest of your life feeling like that.
Yeah. So
how does it feel like to kind of get back to a place where I'm like, I can experience stress, but then I like slide back down the slide?
That's an interesting question. So they don't necessarily teach you how to turn things off per se. Like, you know, you always hear people go to boot camp and they're like, we're going to break you down and build you back up. And there is some truth to that. They strip you of your former life, all your possessions, your identity. And it's like, you are in our Marine Corps boot camp, it's like you did never say I or me or we. That gives you ownership. It's like, it is this recruit, these recruits. You always had to say it like that. And let me tell you, Meredith, if you said like, sir, I need to go to the bathroom, or I'm hungry, or I don't know where the rest of them are, they would light you up. They're like, and they would lose it. And you're just like, oh God. And then it was like, and then you go over there and get some push-ups in until you learn how to say, this recruit does not know where those recruits are, or these recruits are. So you always had to say it like that. But you want to talk about stress, like boot camp was stressful, and it was intended to be like that. They put you under stress so that you learn how to kind of like manage through it. They don't teach you how to turn it off. Stress is always going to be there. You just have to learn how to manage it. I have these like recurring dreams. I promise I'm going somewhere with this. I have these recurring dreams that come up, and I always ask my wife, I'm like, I don't even know what this means. I have very odd dreams. I think I've told you a few of them. I'll have dreams that I show up to a Spartan race with some friends and I'm always late. I have my backpack that has my extra clothes in it, and I got there late and I don't have time to lock it up. And so I have to throw it into a bush or something. And then all of my friends just started. So then I try to hop on the course and catch them. And then I can't because I can't run fast. Like it's like you're running through mud.
Oh,
I have those sometimes. Those stress me out. And then I have military dreams, and it's almost always the same, different scenarios, but the same thing. And it'll be that I don't have all my gear and we're going on a mission and I can't find all my stuff. The last one I had, I needed my vest and my rifle to get out the door. And like we were hopping on a helo and they're like, Johnson, we're leaving right now. And I'm like, I'm not even ready. And so I just like grab stuff and I grab my rifle and I can't find my vest and I can't find my helmet. And I'm trying to run out on the tarmac to get on the helicopter. And I'm like, this is going to suck. Like I'm about to, somebody's going to yell at me. This ain't going to work out there. I've had dreams. I forgot my rifle, which is a big no-no. It's just like, I've had all these dreams that come up and I've asked my wife, I'm like, I don't know why I have these dreams. And she's like, it's probably because you don't always prepare for things. And then maybe you've wanted to make some decisions in the past, and that's why you keep having the same thing. Maybe you didn't like the decisions you made in the past, and you're trying to relive those. I'm like, I know, but I can't fix any of them. It keeps coming back up. I just always remember you always had to have all your gear and be locked and loaded and ready to rock and roll all the time. You couldn't be unprepared. And so there was always stress there. Like you can't leave anything behind. You can't, you have to be prepared. And so there was stress at times. And I think once you get out of boot camp and you get to your unit and everything, stuff starts to chill out. But there's always like, hey, this is coming up. We got to get training for this. Hey, we're going to get deployed at some point. So you always just have this like the buzz in the background all the time. Civilian life, it's way different. We talked about levels of stress. I can't remember, there's a color code system, but you have white, yellow, orange, red, and I think there's black. And so it's a color code system for how alert you need to be at different times. White is like, I'm just chilling in my house. Nothing's going on. I can be in full relaxation mode. There's no threat. Yellow and orange is like, there is a threat that I might observe or see, or my senses are heightened and I'm paying attention. And then when you get orange, red, orange is like, I see the threat, I'm planning. And then red's like, its threat is imminent. And then black is like, got like gloves off. Like it's happening. And so, they say you should be able to color code, where you're at, and then also be able to dial yourself down. But what ends up happening is if you're, you have experienced things being in the military, it's hard to turn that off. And I find myself, it's not easy to turn it off. We're going on vacation in March. I'm really excited. We're going to France and Amsterdam. My lovely wife planned for us to go. And my initial reaction was just like, we're going with the kids. And I'm just like, so we're going where and what area? And I'm already thinking like, they're going to be in between us. And then we're going to keep all our stuff. And, I'm thinking about all worst case scenarios. And when we go places, she's always looking at me and she's like, are you good? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm just paying attention to people. Not everybody thinks about that stuff. It's very hard. Not all military is like that. Usually it's the infantry. Like if you're in that type of environment, it's hard to turn things off. That's why most military, if you're infantry, a lot of times you sit with your back to the door so you can see your back to the wall so you can see the door, and you're paying attention to people. I need to see hands and heads. You walk in the parking lot.
Yeah.
You look for heads in cars close to yours. Is somebody's car running and the lights are off? Are they close by? Do you have a van that's parked next to your car with the sliding door facing the driver door? Paying attention to those types of things. Most people don't. So I have a hard time turning it off.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure, military, obviously, I can see where that's the case. I can see that there's lots of reasons, military or not. I can see why there's, reasons why people would have a hard time turning it off. Even if you've had an experience, then other things kind of bring up that experience, kind of initiate that stress response for anybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that you mentioned the fact that you guys are going on vacation, because I wrote that down. Is obviously we know that difficult things in life cause stress. I mean, when I read these things, obviously I'm like, well, my weekend don't sound like nothing compared to the other things that people, can experience. Of course, things like, relationship issues or health issues or financial issues, parenting, all of those things. But then I also wrote, because I read this and I don't think that necessarily, I think we know this, but we don't normalize it enough. Even positive changes can cause your stress response to kick in big time. And one of the things was going on a trip like that. It's like, it's nice and we enjoy it and it's fun to make those memories and have that time together, but it's stressful, even if you're not paying attention to all the things that you're paying attention to, which now I have some new fears unlocked. Yeah. But like they, just the planning of it, and then we need to be here and we need to make it to the plane on time.
That's for you. Like, I know you like to plan.
Yeah.
If y'all don't know, when Meredith went on was it Disney? Yep. Disney vacation with their family, she brought her family over and had a full PowerPoint presentation with handouts, I believe.
Yep.
Handed out. All right, on page 1.
Everybody had a folder. Mm-hmm.
My word. Everybody's folder, I'm sure, had their name on it.
It did. Yep.
Yeah, I think with stress, it's interesting. Like, I didn't recognize this before, but there's just probably more than just 3, but they talk about the types of stress, which I think more often we think of like acute stress, which is like a little bit more short term. Things pop up. Hey, I need a decision on this. How should we teach this class? It's short lived. Then I think people do hear about chronic stress as like ongoing. It lasts over a longer period of time that people deal with. And I think that's the more negative, mostly negative ones that we think about because it sticks around for a long time. And then they have episodic stress, which is repeated acute stress episodes. Mm-hmm. So I need you to make a decision. I need you to make a decision because it's huge spikes that happen. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for us to recognize the patterns. Man, the more I've lived on this earth, the more I realize like stuff happens in patterns often. You meet patterns of people and patterns of life. Like Jim Rohn always talks about the seasons of life. Mm-hmm. How many summers do you live on this earth? You only have, 65, 70 summers for you to live and like experience. That's not a lot, but you start to notice the patterns. But just thinking about like repeated acute stress, if you have stressful situations that keep popping back up and you recognize that I don't manage that well, you probably should equip yourself with some tools on how to fix some of that. Mm-hmm. One of my favorites, I actually heard it just yesterday. I was listening to the Sean Ryan Show podcast. It's weird we're on a podcast talking about podcasts. He has Travis Haley on there, who was a military fellow. He was a recon Marine and did some pretty cool stuff, but he talks a lot about the science behind how to, he talks about a lot about gunfighting, but he talks about the science behind like being effective with that. And he talks often about stress. He said that they had a scenario where they were overseas. There was like an ammo supply point, like just, they have like bombs and weapons and all this stuff. And like, I guess they got a shot, somebody shot at them. And so they engaged the building. And he says, I remember, looking through my sight, like he had a red dot. So it's like a lens and it has like a little red dot in the middle. Mm-hmm. And that is your aim point. He says, I remember not remembering if I could see the dot. It just disappears. So when you're in a high stress situation, your field of view goes very central and you focus on little things and you miss all of the details around. And so it's interesting thinking that, not only does our brain not work effectively when we're under stress like that, depending on what type it is, we also our field of view narrows. Mm-hmm. And so you can only focus on what's in front of you. So you think about an argument with somebody, that's stress. You don't say the best things and it's just, all you see is that. You don't notice the room and the people around you. If you're arguing with somebody in a restaurant, you're not thinking about anything of what's going on behind that. No different than if I'm sitting there and I see a potential threat walk in a room at a restaurant, I don't always notice all the other things around that person. I'm really focusing on them. And so those stress moments, they change how our body, our physiology, and how it operates in the moment until the threat is diminished or gone. And then you go back to baseline. So I thought that was interesting hearing his story of how his vision changes. He couldn't even remember seeing the red dot, even though he's trained hundreds of thousands of rounds shooting, and he can't see the thing that he's seen hundreds of thousands of times.
Yeah, it's crazy to me the way that it affects your body. We talked a little bit about this in the last episode about the mind-body connection, and how, it causes your heart rate to go up. It causes you to have like this almost like tunnel vision. I mean, I wrote down here, the Mental Health Foundation in 2018 did a study, and there was two things that I wrote down because I thought they were really interesting. But the first one was that 74% of people have felt so stressed that they have become overwhelmed or were unable to cope. 74%.
That's a lot of people.
So if we're talking about normalizing stress, then I think that's 100% a way to normalize it. 3 out of 4 people have felt so stressed that they feel overwhelmed or they can't cope. I also thought it was interesting. I don't know if this was in there or somewhere else, but I wanted to know more about, of course, the definition. What is stress? We should have started there.
There we go for our little ride.
Yep. So it occurs when something happens that we feel imposes a demand on us. When we perceive that we cannot cope or we feel inadequate to meet the demand, we begin to feel stress. So we feel a demand, just like this weekend. I felt demands on me. I felt like I needed to care for Evan. I felt like I needed to care for my kids. I needed to check on my mother-in-law. I needed to support my sister. She just had a new baby. I wanted to be a part of the gala because it's important to me. This team is important to me. And I definitely could feel like there were times where I either felt inadequate to meet the demand because I was trying to meet all the demands. I didn't feel like I couldn't cope, but definitely felt like there was a lot of demands and I wasn't going to be able to meet them all.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that they found in the study was that stress is linked with the 6 leading causes of death in America.
Wow.
Heart disease, cancer, lung ailments, accidents, going back to the fact that we are so narrow focused that we don't pay attention if we're driving or whatever the case may be, that we tend to make wrong judgment calls and things like that when we feel heavy times of stress. Liver damage, obviously that's connected with stress and alcohol, and suicide.
Wow.
So I just think I don't have the statistics for this, but when the doctor that was on the Mel Robbins podcast, she was talking about how a lot of, even when you go to the doctor, a lot of times, they treat the symptoms of what's going on when really the root cause is stress.
Yeah.
And so it's about navigating the stress and getting some better coping strategies than just dealing with the fact that, like, I always have an upset stomach. Well, the upset stomach, it could be stress. It might be something else, but we also should look at the fact of how much stress are people carrying that's manifesting itself in some other way in our bodies.
Yeah. I do want to go back when you were talking about the definition, and it's like the perceived level of stress, or just my perception is what determines if I'm stressed or not. And I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about, like, what are the signs of it, and then, like, how do we fix that? Because, like, even thinking about the perception of stress, like, you can have 2 people observe a scenario and they both can perceive it differently, and one might be stressed to freak out, and then the other one's absolutely cool as a cucumber. And there's so much that goes into why one would react in one way and one wouldn't, but it's the perception of it. And I think that to me just interests me, because I can change my perceptions of things, how I look at stuff, how I interpret it, and it can give me a different response if I practice it enough. And I think that's the cool part of, the power that we have in this life is of choice and our autonomy. If I can look at this differently, I can get a different result, whether it be externally or internally. And so if I look at the situation as, hey, this could be good for me. Life's not happening to me. It's happening for me. This happened and it's going to make me better, even if it's challenging. Like if you change the perception of those things, then you can change your outcomes and how you feel about it. Feeling those little butterflies and everything, I think there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's normal. But what you do after that will determine what your outcomes will be. And so I was thinking, like, how does this stuff show up? Because it looks differently for people. Some people may not recognize some signs. You pointed to a few of them, but the obvious stuff is irritability. You feel overwhelmed. Like you said, you feel like you can't cope. Maybe you have anxiety. Those are probably the most common things people see. But the physical side, like constant headaches or fatigue, which happens often. Like if you're stressed all the time, your body is in overload mode. And so what does it do with that? It's going to be tired because it's trying to fight all the time. Muscle tension's another one. So that's why they say, like, get a massage. It relieves stress, but you're really just relieving a symptom. You're not relieving where it's coming from. But the behavioral side that we sometimes try to cope or manage that, it can show up as procrastination. Some people it's overeating. Like my coping mechanism is to eat, or like you said, like people can resort to some type of substance. Sometimes it's under eating. And so if I'm procrastinating all the time, why am I procrastinating? Is it because I'm stressed? I tell you, sometimes when I find myself procrastinating, I'm like, why am I just saying I'm going to do this later? And I do find, actually, Adrian asked us yesterday in operations, it was, I think it was something along the lines of, what do you notice you behave like when you're stressed, or how do you behave when that pops up? And I was like, I keep finding myself looking at my calendar, seeing what I have to do today or tomorrow so I can kind of plan it out. And then I'm just like, okay, all right, I need to do this, and I'll write them down. This is what I need to do. And I'm like, wait, did I miss something? I'll go back to my calendar and I'll just circle the calendar like a vulture. Like, I got to do all these things, and I'm kind of ruminating in it, and I don't take action. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do these. I'll even do the Ivy Lee list method sometimes. If you guys don't know what that is, you list out your top only six priorities for the next day, and you don't move past number one until you finish it. Well, I'll write my Ivy Lee list down and get it in order and number it, and then I'll do them out of order because I'm like, I can just do this one first. And I'm literally putting off the most important thing of the day to do something that may not take me as much time or doesn't stress me out as much. I put the first one on there because it's important, but I procrastinate on it sometimes. And so that's a behavior that you guys might notice that could be a sign of stress.
Yeah, I think it is. Going back to the doctor reference, I think we just as people need to be more aware of exactly what you're saying is when these things show up. If I can't sleep, if I'm getting snippy with people, like mood, those types of things, we have to be, if I'm having if my stomach's hurting all the time, or I think we need to be more aware of the fact and asking those questions. Where is this coming from? If that's not your norm, then it's coming from somewhere. Right. And is there something I can do to help me recognize, is this stress that's kind of pushing this physical manifestation of this forward? So there was, I don't know if you said already about the brain, because this is a really fancy word. But once you recognize that it is stress, then okay, what do you do about it? Yeah. So we've already talked about Rob's favorite word, chunking.
We have not said that word today, have we? No,
but that's what we alliterated. That's what we alluded to.
It's not.
It's
breaking it down to bite size.
Okay, chunking.
Pieces. I hate that word, y'all.
I don't know if there's a button you could push for that, but
I need a cancel button. I don't like that.
So, a word that Rob and I were talking about before we started is this idea, this is really fancy, is neuroplasticity. So your brain is like a muscle. It can and will form new neural pathways. You can rewire your brain to be more resilient to stress. And you can also do the opposite. Which is if you are constantly under this chronic stress and your amygdala is turned on all the time, then your brain can recognize that too. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it shrinks. I don't know what it does.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. They said when cortisol, which is the stress chemicals release, or stress hormones released in your body, it literally breaks down tissues so that you have energy to fight.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate part is it's all tissues. I mean, your body tries to save important vital organs in your brain, obviously, because you'd be dumb. But it actually breaks down your brain and makes it smaller when you're stressed all the time. And it comes from that hormone. You have a stressful job, stressful situations, whether it be chronic or acute, and they're happening often enough, and your stress hormones in your body often enough, it starts to break down tissue. And that's why people's immune system drops or muscle loss happens, or they just seem really frail and, incapable, but it comes from that.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to me how you can go either way. You can allow the stress to take you down that road, or you can get some tools in your toolkit and you can create new neural pathways that help you to be more resilient to stress.
Yeah.
So a couple of those that I found were, the first one was the rule of 2, and that's implementing no more than 2 new stress reducing techniques. It obviously, we've talked about this. You can't try and change the world at one time. So if you're under a lot of stress, then it's not the time to try and change a whole lot of things. So the rule of 2, no more than 2 things. You don't feel as overwhelmed. It increases your likelihood of being successful. It builds confidence, all those things. So the rule of 2, the Goldilocks principle, which I don't think we said this yet, but stress it is a positive thing. There is good and bad stress, obviously. Stress also is what kind of pushes you to get out of bed in the morning, to meet deadlines, to get shizzle done, as Shallon would say.
Shizzle.
So it's important to find that sweet spot for you for stress. It's enough to feel motivated, not enough to feel overwhelmed or defeated. So it's okay to take breaks. It's okay to stop and breathe. It's okay to take a short walk. You need to find the sweet spot of the Goldilocks. And I think that just comes from paying attention.
Yeah.
I know this week I was not in the sweet spot. No. So if you all think about a bell curve, if you've seen, it's like low, high, low. Did you like that sound effect?
I didn't like it. I didn't like the image either.
So I was over on the right-hand side. I was on the high side for a good majority of the week. So it's great that I'm recognizing that now, but it would have been way better if I could have recognized that earlier in the week and gone outside. It's been beautiful this week.
Oh, it really has.
Gone outside, gone for a 5-minute walk. The purpose in moving your body when you're stressed is not for exercise necessarily. It's to move your body because our bodies are meant to move.
Oh man, I got something for you. I heard this. I was actually driving here to do the pod today, and they had a study. They said one of the greatest discoveries they've found in the human body of late is that when you contract your muscles, have you heard this?
No.
When you contract your muscles release a protein that they've named the hope. I think it was like the hope chemical or something like that.
What?
Yeah, it releases like an antidepressant into your system to where you feel more hopeful and more positive and the only way that you can get that chemical to be released is by contracting your muscles.
Huh.
So that's what they say, like those people that go to the gym and work out and do it consistently enough are tend to be more positive, hopeful, because that they are doing that. And I guess they measured it. I guess they didn't know that before. And so they discovered it of late. And that's why they say movement is medicine.
Yeah.
If you move your body, you walk. I promise you, if you're having a bad day and you just want to lay on the couch all day long, you always feel so much worse if you don't do anything all day than if you just get up off the couch and go for a walk. If your mind's not in the right, space, or you have writer's block, or you don't know where to turn and know what to do, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Change things.
Something else I heard, which kind of goes along with that, is that sitting is the new smoking.
I don't like that.
Like being sedentary, because we sit all day at work.
Yeah.
And that it is so bad not just physically, but it's just not good for you.
Yeah.
To sit, which kind of goes back to, even if you walk outside and you're doing a 5-minute walk, it's not about your gene size at that point. It's about your mental well-being.
Yeah.
I need some sunshine on my face, I need some fresh air, and I need to get my body moving. So, and I think that that's hard, and you're in the middle of a stressful situation. Oh, time out. Let me go for a walk.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's worthwhile to have some of those things in your back pocket. What's wrong with saying, I need a timeout? I just need to go.
Yeah. Why do they say when people are arguing, hey, stop, go walk it off?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the little things we've heard or seen, but you don't know why it works.
Right.
It lets doesn't change the fact that it does.
Yeah. It lets your other, I don't know I guess it's the prefrontal cortex. So we talked about the amygdala. The prefrontal cortex is your thinking brain on the front. And I guess really what you do when you're walking is you're allowing that to come back online.
Yeah.
You're getting out of the emotion a little bit, out of the threat, out of the stress, and you're allowing your thinking brain to come back online so you can actually make some decisions or have some real conversation. So I think that's one thing. Go on a short walk. Breathing. I thought this was really interesting. Breath is the only psychological bodily process that is under both voluntary and involuntary control. What? Which is why, and I know some people might think that's some mumbo jumbo, taking deep breaths, whatever. You can help activate the right nervous system through your breath. So you can help the amygdala calm itself down, and you can help bring your thinking brain back online just by breath.
Yep.
So she gave the example. She called it Stop, Breathe, Be, and she's a doctor, and so she said that every time she was going into a patient's room, it was called her doorknob talk. So she would stop at the doorknob, stop, breathe, be. And be was feeling my feet on the floor, being grounded.
Yep.
And then she would walk into the patient's room, and she would do that over and over and over again all day long until it just became part of what she does. And she did it. She was on the Mel Robbins podcast, and she said right before they started the podcast, she did stop,
That's cool.
Breathe, be. So I just think we, like you said, we know these things. We know take a walk. We know take a few deep breaths. It's just a matter of
doing it,
yeah,
remembering it when it's happening.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about awareness on here tons of times, and it's just you have to be aware of what's happening in the moment so you can adjust. We talk about in the military, we talk about the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. 2 O's, a D, and an A. So observe the situation, what's happening. And so when you're looking at what's happening, you got to take it all in, and then orient. It's okay, I need to position myself, and I need to think what's going to happen next. Once you've made the choice, I think this is going to be the best plan of action, you decide this is what I'm going to do. And then you act. You got to act on it. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny, hearing that outside of the military, because not many people say that. And then when you hear somebody say, "Oh yeah, I got to get back in my OODA loop," we used to say that, and you're like, I mean, it was common language for us, but I heard somebody say that on a podcast, and I just laughed because it was he just said it and kept moving on, and I'm like, nobody knows what that is,
yeah,
except for if you were in the military. But it's such a good tool. Observe, orient, decide, act. I see myself which is another tool. Distancing yourself from the problem by looking at it in the third person. And it's not, I'm getting angry or I'm getting stressed or I am stressed. I see myself becoming stressed. So detaching from that allows you to make a better decision. It's always easier for us to give advice to other people, but we never can give it to ourselves. So if you can use that strategy and detach from it and say, I'm seeing myself, and then fill in the blank, getting angry, becoming sad, or behaving like I'm sad. And then you have to start questioning yourself, which is other things we've talked about on here. You know, what's making me feel this way? Is this the only emotion that I'm feeling? Where is that coming from? How would I change this? What advice would somebody give me in this moment? Those types of behaviors will give you tools to be able to change your outcomes versus saying, I am sad. Well, sad people, angry people, and those negative emotion spaces don't always make the best decisions. And clearly we know that being upset, angry, sad, they're going to release chemicals, hormones in our body that don't help us in a positive fashion, which I thought was interesting. Talking about neuroplasticity, that your being stressed, cortisol being in your body affects memory. And that's why when we're trying to remember something that happened to us in a stressful moment, we don't always remember it very well. Remember, our vision goes centralized. I miss details. And then on top of that, the cortisol's still in your body for a while and it's breaking down tissue. So your memory isn't as good as it could have been. And if you live in a chronic stressed state, your memory does go downhill. Your cognitive function goes downhill. So it's no wonder, like literally we get dumber if we're stressed. Period. You're angry at somebody, you are dumber. You're using your you're using your limbic system in the back, the lizard brain, the old brain, not the prefrontal cortex that you're talking about, but the amygdala, hippocampus, thalamus, hypothalamus, all that stuff's back there. And it's like you literally go back to chimp mode. I think there's a book and somebody quoted it. It's like not the chimp mentality or something like that, but it's like just goes back to like us at a primal state. Like we dumb when we angry. It's like, I crush you. You know, it's like, that's how we feel. Or you go the other way and you're like, I'm going to run and go the other way. And so the freeze, flight, fight, specifically in that order, is how we behave. And not really many of those do we use the thinking part of our brain, which is interesting, which is why breath techniques work. You consciously, prefrontal cortex, make a decision to breathe. You are literally oxygenating your blood. Your brain needs oxygen to operate. So that's why when you're upset, you breathe faster. But if you can slow your breathing down intentionally, it allows you to focus on what you need to do. And that the gentleman, Travis Haley, he said, breathing techniques, you're about to get doing something stressful. Like deep breath through your nose, hold it out through your mouth. You'd actually do a little slower than that. You do a few of those and you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, she had another one, 4-7-8 breathing or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was that kind of thing. Like maybe it's 4 breaths, in for 7, out for 8. I don't know. It was something along those lines.
Like box breathing, 4x4, 5, 7x7. Yeah.
Anything that I think just helps you to focus in on that. I just think having a really quick tool you can access easily makes all the difference, because just like we've already said, it's so hard in that moment to bring it all back online.
Yeah. Have you heard of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy? Yeah, you have? Man, my friend Jen Kippett, she asked me about this in the past, and I think I kind of heard of it, but I really started to look into it some more. And there's some interesting techniques that I came across on that. And I wanted to point out a few, because some of them link to the breath control, but a lot of it is patterns of thinking differently. So we've talked about reframing, which is, so you say, I can't handle this. Like, I just can't do this right now. I can't do this anymore. You change that to, can I break this down into smaller steps, which is what we said earlier. So if you have a thought that comes into your mind or something comes out of your mouth often when you're stressed, how can I change the dynamic of that? Because it's not that you can't handle it. You can handle it in bite-sized pieces, one burpee at a time, you know?
Yeah. And going along with that, I had written down your amygdala, it gets a megaphone when you're stressed.
Yes.
So I thought that was a great analogy. Your amygdala gets a megaphone, and that's when we start hearing those things so loud. I can't do this. I always screw this up. That kind of thing. It gets louder.
I'm going to crush you.
Yeah. The more stressed we get, the louder it gets. So being able to do exactly what you're saying is so important then, because we got to take the megaphone away.
Yep. Which is actually interesting, taking the megaphone away and reframing. Something else they mentioned was doing thought records, which is kind of like diary, but it's actually writing down your thoughts in the moment. Like if you're saying that I can't handle this, you write those things down. You give it an intensity rating. How do you feel about what you just said? And then goes back to some of the questions we've asked on our previous episodes, 2 episodes ago, of what evidence do I have that supports this? Is there another way that I can see this? Are there any other emotions that I'm feeling? So those thought records can really help you put those things down. And if you do it often, it's like every single time I say this, I wonder where that comes from. And are there other thoughts? But they had a whole ton. They had like, I wrote this down, schedule pleasure. It's like you got to schedule like things that you enjoy, because that's going to take you off of, you being in the fight mode all the time. They talked about mindfulness activities, which we've talked about. Gradual. This is something that I wanted to pick your brain on for a second, which was they were talking about gradual exposure to stress. You said that we can reshape our brain and how we handle stress. And so the CBT stuff was you schedule or plan some exposure to stress so that
exposure
you can
therapy.
More. Yep. That one was interesting to me, just planning that out, which it's interesting. I know we've been doing this podcast for a long time, but that's pretty much what you've done on here. Just a little bit of exposure.
Yep.
And then you showed up to one and one only, where you're like, didn't plan. And you did it anyway.
Yep.
We should just start doing that in the future.
I don't know about that.
But that was really good. So that's for everybody, and including both of us. But CBT techniques were very interesting. There's a lot of like studies and all that stuff. It's kind of along the lines of therapy. It is, but it's very interesting. A lot of good techniques in there.
Yeah. I think one thing that you said, we talked about this a little bit before we started today, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I've talked about this before. I think another thing you need to do is prioritize your sleep. I think you need to minimize digital distractions. I think that one thing I wrote down about that I'm recognizing about myself that I need to get in check. Obviously, with the constant connectivity we have with our phones, it decreases our focus. They talked about a thing called popcorn brain, where it's like we're overstimulated because we see, when we're scrolling, we see this, we see this, we see this, we see this. It's like our brain is all over the place. And so that causes us to be overstimulated, and it causes us to not be able to settle down. And so
I thought about that in a different way of dopamine addiction,
Yeah.
where we're using that to buffer our stress. It gives us that feel good chemical, and that's another behavior that people tend to resort to whenever they're in stress.
Yes, like a checking out.
Yeah.
When really and truly what it does is it causes you to be overly connected to everything that's happening. Like you're like, oh, so-and-so's on a vacation. We haven't been on vacation ever. Michael, do we need to go on a vacation? I need to start planning a vacation. And then the next one's like, oh, there's coyotes in the neighborhood. Everybody be careful when you take Indy out. Don't let a coyote eat her. I mean, this is what happens.
You're increasing your stress level.
Yes. I can, now that I look at it that way, I'm like, that's exactly between the ads, or there's an ad for something. I'm like, oh, yep, I forgot to do that. I need to order that. It's like, that's what's happening. And then there was another thing they talked about this, the need. And I do feel this way. I feel so guilty about not responding right away. And I'm terrible about that. I'm terrible about reading a text or something like that, and then I let it go, and then I'll feel guilty for it for days.
Yeah.
And it's like the need to immediately respond. I know I'm putting that pressure on myself, but it's still a stressor. It's like, I haven't connected with my friends in this many days. I haven't checked on my sister in this many days. I haven't checked in with my teammate. Like it's just, and all of that is because we have it at our fingertips to be able to do it. Yeah. Back in the 1900s, you wouldn't have even had a choice. I couldn't have checked in with you guys like that as frequently without calling or having a meeting with face-to-face. So I just thought that was interesting to talk about your mental bandwidth and putting some boundaries in place for digital distractions.
Yeah.
Because it's so prevalent. I think the sleep piece, I won't go down that, but I think that's a huge, huge piece that people are not recognizing.
The sleep or the digital distractions?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's changing the way I'm thinking about it. As you say all that, is I used to think it was just like, I don't feel good on this side, so I want to feel good by using my phone. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think about it as I'm doing that and it's actually making more stress. That's a new thought for me.
Yeah.
From just today.
I
didn't think about it like that.
It was for me as well.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about before we started this idea of hustle culture, where it's like, it's a badge of honor to always be busy. You're only as productive as you are busy, that kind of thing. And that's just it's like a societal kind of attitude towards life. And so what she was saying is, our brains and bodies are not designed for that. They're not designed to keep going. Rest and recovery is not just like a nice thing to have. It's like a thing you have to have.
It's necessary.
It's absolutely necessary. And I think it's so hard for us in a hustle culture to recognize that, and I know, like, hearing self-compassion, that can also be like woo-woo, that kind of thing. And maybe you call it something different. I don't know.
Be nice to yourself.
Right. Call it whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, it is necessary to, and I'm not talking like, you have to jet set off to Fiji. That would be lovely and spend months there. I'm not talking about that kind of reset, but it is important to give your body time to rest and recover.
You keep talking about vacation.
I know.
Is there something that you need to say to the group or say to Michael on this?
Well, you all, he already know. He already know it's time for us to go on a vacation.
Michael, I'll have to text him after this and give him a heads up before you get home.
Yeah. So
you do need you got to have a reset. It's literally biologically necessary. You have to have reset moments daily. Sleep. Plan your sleep, budget around it. But then, like, having those, I need to go on vacation. I need to let the pressure off for a little bit.
Yeah.
But your balance of hormones and everything else comes farther back in to where it needs to be. But you can't just say, I'm going to take one vacation a year, or even if you say two, but I'm going to utilize the mindset of hustle culture and all the rest of the time. Like, that ain't going to be enough. And that's not the lifestyle you want.
No. No, I think it is. I think my biggest takeaways from what we've kind of talked about, I already prioritize my sleep, so I ain't got to worry about that.
Go to bed at 6:00.
But, I think it is like putting some more boundaries in the digital way. I think giving myself the opportunity to take a break. I have a really hard time relaxing. Even when we're on vacation, I have a hard time relaxing, and I don't know where that comes from. It's just, I don't know that I feel so like hustle culture, but I think it's like, I don't know what it is, but I think that I need to work on that. I think that I could work a little bit on silencing the inner critic, taking away the megaphone. I am proud of myself from this weekend for kind of navigating it like I did, and not just, getting completely overwhelmed by the whole situation.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely could use some more tools in my toolkit. So,
well, today was worthwhile then.
Yep.
We talked about a lot. I mean, it seems like, I mean, you and I are both walking away with tons of strategies and things that we could possibly adjust and change. I'm still got to wrap my mind around the phone thing because I'm still just like, I never thought about it like that. So that's a big takeaway for me. But for everybody out there thinking about how much time do we spend on our phone? How much time do we spend trying to escape just stuff in our life, the stress in our life? Finding if we find ourselves stressed, that we need to get up and move, that it helps change things for us. It can help you think better. It'll help you feel better. Don't just lay on the couch. I loved your rule of 2. I think that's great. Minimizing how much stuff that we're exposing ourselves to, but then even on the other side of that, maybe even planning things that it's going to stress me out a little bit, but it's going to help me with my, brain development, neuroplasticity. The Goldilocks rule, recognizing that being stressed literally shrinks our brain, makes us dumber. It's like, I need to be as stress-free as possible. But if y'all find yourselves in positions where I'm stressed all the time, it may be good for you to take a big step back and break it down and say, what areas of my life are causing me that? And what options do I have on how I can possibly change and get away from it or make some adjustments where you can live that good balanced life. Stress ain't necessarily bad, but it's one of those things, and too much excess, much like anything else, can be bad for us. So we need to make those adjustments.
Yep. Progress over perfection.
Ain't right.
Maybe I'll keep repeating that. Progress over perfection.
There you go.
I did have a Brene quote.
Okay.
One day you will tell your story of how you overcame what you went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide.
I feel like that's the mic drop at the end of the podcast right there.
Let me go back to my tattoo design.
You're going to get a little tattoo?
My Brene tattoo.
Yep.
All right, guys. We hope that you took away a few things. Stress is going to be out there. We all know that. Let's put some more tools in our toolkit so that you are ready for it when it comes up. If you're feeling stressed right now, try 1, try 2, try something. Do something, right? I think we have a theme for the year coming on now. Yes. All right. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple so you will never miss an episode. Have a wonderful 2 weeks until we are together again. Thank you for listening. Until then, peace, love, and easy does it.
Hey, appreciate y'all.